Two of gaming's biggest names, Activision-Blizzard and Take-Two Interactive. They dropped their latest earnings only moments ago after the bell. And for more, we're joined by CFRA Vice President of Equity Research, John Freeman. John, thank you for being here today. First, Activision-Blizzard, nice beat on net bookings, $3.5 billion versus estimates of $3.1 billion, up 43%. Adjusted EPS, nice beat. What's your takeaway, your big takeaways from the report?
Well, I was really surprised with Activision. I mean, clearly they're executing, despite the, potential distraction of the Microsoft acquisition. And Call of Duty is just an outstanding property. And they, continue to. What's really impressive. They continue. It's over 20 years old, and they continue to find really compelling updates to it that, drive user engagement, which drives, obviously, which drives revenue. Obviously, video games, right? It's a little bit like landing an F-18 Hornet on an aircraft carrier at night in stormy seas. This is a very hit-driven business, but this is a pretty impressive beat on at least on the top line, no doubt.
That is a very colorful description, as always, sir. You mentioned the acquisition, which it feels like we've been talking about for years. It has been more than a year. And the New York Times now reporting that Microsoft expects the UK to be an even bigger problem and oppose that. What chance do you give this of actually coming to fruition?
So it's kind of interesting. If I didn't know what the stock price was, I would say, it's, they're going to have to make some concessions, but then it might be a little rough, but they should be able to pull it off. Yet at the same time, the stock, I've never seen a differential. The offer price was $95 a share. The stock is trading at $72. There's obviously a lot of smart money, a lot of investors betting that it's not, the wisdom of crowds, right? I mean, if you go by that, then it says that, it looks like it's going to get blocked. And obviously the UK, I mean, personally, I also cover Microsoft. I don't think this is the right acquisition for them. I understand why they're buying it. It's all about Call of Duty, no doubt. And the proto-metaverse sort of, that's what they want to sort of get their hands on. I understand that. But I think that from a regulatory perspective, it really just adds, additional scrutiny to Microsoft, which obviously as a big tech member is already got, a fair amount of scrutiny. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind them giving up on the acquisition, but, obviously they made the commitment to do it. But it seems like it's really, the regulatory resistance is pretty heavy.
And John, let's switch gears to Take-Two. Your forecast was a little bit light, seeing net bookings of $5.2 billion to $5.25. Estimate was for higher, almost $5.5 billion. What are you seeing in this report? Anything that stands out to you?
What stands out to me right now is, and it's the thing I've been concerned of. I mean, I think the valuation for Take-Two, if you're a long-term patient investor and you can ride the ups and downs of the hit-driven video game industry, then I think shares are really attractive. But I am worried about the Zynga acquisition and the integration issues. This was not a merger of equals, but it's a merger. It's a pretty significant organizational merger. Whenever you have that, you're going to have the risk of integration issues and business disruption. And maybe we're seeing that in the results here for Take-Two this quarter.
So, with the exception of Call of Duty and maybe a handful of other titles, how would you describe the gaming sector as we are beginning 23?
So, obviously the glow of the heightened engagement that we saw post-COVID, that glow has faded. And now, now you're seeing the real, more generally hit-driven aspects of it. And, some are hits and some are not. So that, that's the dynamic that I think is going on. But I also, longer term, I really do have a lot of confidence in the more immersive type games. The sort of what I call proto-metaverse kind of games like Call of Duty, like GTA as well. And we're seeing GTA 6, it's coming down the pike soon. I'll be very interested to see what commentary Take-Two has on that on their earnings call.
I have to admit, I'm not a gamer, but I used to work at a video game store, Electronics Boutique, back in the mid-90s. That's how old I am. I'm just wondering, how levered are these companies to the console cycle as they have been historically?
So they are less levered now. But this last console cycle did have an impact. I mean, obviously it was hitting with the Wave, released in 2020, obviously hitting, concurrent with the COVID, lockdown sort of surge in engagement. Take-Two, both Take-Two and Activision are very leveraged to it. I think Take-Two is more so. But I think the console, is still relevant, and it does bring that sort of those types of really immersive games, the ones where that the real hardcore gamers really get into. I think that's still very real. You don't get that kind of immersive experience from a mobile game. You just don't yet. That's not in the cards for right now.
As you mentioned earlier, you do cover Microsoft and news today that Google says they're going to unveil Bard in the coming weeks. How significant is the Microsoft advantage, and how big a threat is it to search?
Well, I think it's a threat to search, because obviously if Microsoft can use ChatGPT to take any sort of share, that's all upside for them. But really, where I see Microsoft, where ChatGPT, I think, plays an even bigger role potentially, is with integration with Office. Kind of think about it as autocomplete, but for entire paragraphs and pages rather than just single words, right? That's a potentially tremendous productivity helper. So, Microsoft will find a way to monetize that, over time. So I think that's really the integration with Microsoft Office, I think, is actually a bigger deal, at least in the short to midterm.
Well, hopefully we don't see that integration among ChatGPT and Call of Duty or any of these other games. I don't even want to go there. Thank you for great insights. John Freeman, we'll speak to you soon.